Welcome everybody to our Freshwater Stewardship Community webinar. We're really happy to have you here today. I'm really happy to have with us Katie Sonier, the data manager at the Town of Stratford, Prince Edward Island. And we also have Dr. Xander Wang here with us, who's the associate professor in the School of Climate Change and Adaptation at the University of Prince Edward Island. And my name is Nicole. I'm the Freshwater Health Coordinator at Watersheds Canada. And we also have one more staff member from Watersheds Canada. We have Monica, and she's the fundraising manager, and she can help you if you're having any technical issues in Zoom. Feel free to send her a private message. And before we get started, I just wanted to let you know a little bit about Watersheds Canada. So Watersheds Canada is a nonprofit and charitable organization based in Perth, Ontario. So you can see some of the photos of our programs up here on the screen. So on the top left there, you can see our Natural Edge program, which is a program where we work with landowners to plant native plants along shorelines. And then on the bottom, we have our Love Your Lake program, which is where we do lake assessments and we give property owners custom recommendations for their property, and then that helps protect the lake health. And on the top right here, we can see our fish habitat restoration program. And that's an example of a winter project where we put rock down on the lake bed. And then in the spring, the rock fell into place, restoring some fish habitat. And then finally, on the bottom right, we have our Nature Discovery program, which is a relatively new program, and that's how we help youth safely explore nature around them. And we're all here today for our Freshwater Stewardship Community, which launched in 2021. So we do have up on our website some archived webinars for you to check out. There are 33 webinars and 26 handouts. So you can find that at watersheds.ca/freshwater-stewardship. And I'd really encourage you to check those out after the webinar today. We have topics from academia, other nonprofits, about a wide variety of freshwater issues. And we'd like to thank our funders for the Freshwater Stewardship Community this year, the Peterborough K.M. Hunter Foundation, and the S.M. Blair Family Foundation for their funding support this year. And I also just wanted to take a moment to let you know about our last webinar that's happening for our Community Science Month. And so it's about bank swallows, and it's happening next Thursday at 10 a.m. So you can register for that on our website as well. That one will be an exciting one. And for all of our webinars, we also make a handout that goes along with them. So I have an example up here on the screen. And basically, we just summarize the key points of our presentations, and then we provide links at the bottom about how you can get involved. So you can expect to receive a handout like this one in your inbox after this presentation. So get excited for that, along with a recording of our webinar as well. And now for the presentation that we're here for today, the Community Climate Tracking in Prince Edward Island. I'm very happy to have Katie Sonier and Dr. Xander Wang here with us today. So with that, I will pass it over to you, Katie and Xander.
Okay, thank you so much, Nicole. Let me share my screen, I guess. Yep. Okay, so I actually have two quick slides. Because of style, I didn't combine them together. Sorry about that. For my side, I basically introduce, the research directions we are doing in the Canadian Centre for Climate Change and Adaptation at UPEI. Then I will specifically talk about climate diary, and then I will talk about the user interface. Then I will turn this to Katie, and Katie will talk about more details about that. Yeah, so first of all, I want to quickly introduce our research lab in the Canadian Center for Climate Change and Adaptation at UPEI. We have a lot of graduate students, research associates to do different types of research. So these are some of the photos of our team member. And here is basically a summary about what we do in our lab, in our climate smart lab. It is a very interdisciplinary research group, and the general idea for us is to basically to provide people, precise or accurate climate information to take some support to climate actions towards a more sustainable and resilient future. So we do produce high-resolution climate modeling. We provide high-resolution climate data, and also we do hydroclimate risk assessment. And this is mostly for coastal flooding or overland flooding. And we also look at how do we build climate resilient communities through both nature-based and engineering-based solutions. And we also look at agriculture side, how climate change is affecting agriculture, and human health and animal health. And finally, we also look at how do we adapt to the future climate change. So for some of our research, we do use high-performance computing cluster to generate future scenarios. A lot of people actually using our data to do different types of impact assessment. Previously, we have developed several climate change data portal based on our high-resolution climate data. Here on this slide, you can see we have Canada climate change data portal, we have China data portal, Ontario, and Prairie for 3 prairie provinces in Canada. And these portals provide user-friendly, high-resolution climate data to the end of this century under different greenhouse gas emission scenarios. People can simply use that to do a lot of impact assessment. And we have a lot of users. So far, we have over 800 registered users. They are downloading data for different purposes around the world. And here I'm going to move forward to talk about what we do for PEI, because PEI is really at the front line of climate change. We're seeing a lot of changes, to our ecosystem, watersheds, coastal lines, because it's really a vulnerable island. So in order to help us understand the climate change here in PEI, so what we do is that we want to establish a public, monitoring system so that we know what's going on with the current climate. So the first platform we have is called PEI Weather and Climate App. And this is based on all the real-time weather stations we have installed across PEI. So far we have over 100 real-time weather stations from different sources. So we combine all these stations together to provide real-time weather information to the general public. And a lot of people using that for different purposes. But for us, we want to look at this for the future. We want to look at historical and future climate data so that we can look at not currently, but also moving to future, what would be the future climate trend for PEI. And another one is called PEI Climate Atlas. So this is to produce high-resolution climate map across PEI. So this is basically to show the spatial patterns. And essentially, it is based on our first platform, which is a PEI climate network, so that we can generate these spatial maps and people can see which area is, we have, higher temperature, low temperature, or which area is wetter, which area is drier. And this kind of information can provide very useful information for local stakeholders, or for example, farmers. They can use that to make a lot of, decisions. And we also have a storm surge early warning system across PEI. And because storm surge is a big issue, like last year, Fiona has caused a lot of damages for us. So we really want to monitor all these, significant storm events, but also we want to look at, the average water level change, so that we can see over time how much sea level increase we are seeing in PEI. And finally, certainly we want to highlight Climate Diary. So this is basically the app I'm going to talk about today. And so certainly I have another slide to talk about that. So I will switch to another slide quickly. Let me just bear with me a little bit. I have another slide. Okay. So can you see my screen? Okay, perfect. Yeah. So so today I want to talk about the idea behind this climate UPEI Climate Diary, and this is essentially based on the climate phenology. And the phenology is basically, I think many people are familiar with this. It basically looks at the timing of annual, recurrent biological events. For example, we can look at plants. We can look at the spring blossoming of the timing, fruit development in summer, and leaf coloring in fall. We can also look at animals. We can look at timing of migration. For example, if you have a bird coming early in spring, which certainly indicates the temperature this year in spring is getting warmer than before. So you can see all these kind of activities, biological activities, they are kind of controlled, regulated by climate. So this will allow us, if we can observe all these, biological events, we can record the first time you see different types of events, then we actually can use that information to indirectly understand, if local climate is changing or not. So this is a very common, approach for people to look at how climate is changing locally. So we basically utilize this idea, and we develop an app so that everyone in PEI can use that to tell us what you are seeing, every year, what kind of events you have seen, and so that when we look at all the data every year, maybe 10 years or 20 years later, we can look at the first time you're seeing a bird coming, and if the timing is getting early and early, which certainly indicates the temperature here in PEI is getting warmer. So this is basically the principle behind climate phenology, and also the principle for us to develop this climate diary. So next, so this is our official website, which is diary.peiclimate.ca, and we call this a web app. The reason is because there are certainly a lot of apps you can download to your mobile phone, either through Apple Store or Android stores. But here we don't want to really bother people. Basically, we know that either your smartphone, tablet, or desktop computer, you do have a web browser. So we want to basically make it very easy for people to use. So that's why we make a decision to develop this web app instead of mobile phone app. So people can use your desktop or tablet or smartphone to look at this app, and the user interface will be automatically adjusted to fit into your screen. So here, this is basically what you see from a tablet or desktop, or left side, right hand side, you do see a smartphone view of the Climate Diary app. So for this app, what we can we allow the users to report. Here, this is just a list of the major components we allow people to report. It includes agricultural activities and amphibians, birds, fish, insects, mammals, plants, and weather. And certainly, this is the original components. And so far, we actually have updated this with the support from Katie and other people from city of Charlottetown, and we have actually more. So I believe Katie will talk about more about those. And how do we report that? It's actually pretty easy. So we basically open this to everyone, so everyone can use that. And to report that, simply we want to ask you to provide your name and email address, so that if we have some questions about this reporting, we probably can follow up with you. And the general ideas for this is to make it very, very easy. So even a kid can use that, to report something if they see something. And the first thing is basically you select a category, and then you select what you have seen, and then you can tell us where did you see that, and when did you see that, and where did you see that, and that's it. So this is basically first, we do ask people to register an account by, telling us your name and email address so that we can follow up with you later if we do have some questions. But after that, it's pretty straightforward. And here's some categories you can select when you want to report your observations in PEI. We have agriculture, we have amphibians, birds, fish, insects, mammals, plants, and weather. So you just simply click on each button, and then it will list all the items under each category. So here I just want to make a note. This is specifically for PEI. This is because all the items we collected, they probably only limit to PEI. Certainly we know that maybe in Atlantic Canada, we probably have similar items, but something probably will be very unique to PEI. But the app itself is not only limited to PEI. We can certainly extend that to other provinces in Canada, but we certainly need to do a lot of work to make sure that we have all these, new database, updated to reflect, different kinds of activities in different provinces. But what we have so far is mainly about PEI. So after you select an item under a category, like here, this is about agricultural activities, you will have grain cutting, and you may have, plowing first of season. So different activities. So you can select from all these existing items, just pick up one, and then you tell us when did you see that. And you can certainly go back. Sometimes, people will see this maybe a few days ago. They can actually come back to report that. And our time, in terms of time and date, you can actually go back. Not like, we will only allow you to report the current or current time. And then after that, you basically will move the map to tell us where did you see exactly. So you can zoom into the app, you can move this around, and our app will automatically record the location of where did you see that, and by recording in the latitude and longitude of the map. So after this, that's basically all the information we need. Then you just click submit, and we will receive that information. If this is something that some items which are included in our public database, then your reporting will be immediately shown on the app, so everyone can see that. But in some cases, we do recognize people may see something new, which are not included in our existing database. If that is the case, you can actually, let me see. Here's a slide. You can actually report something new in our app. So this is basically when you choose something from the category, then you do see this link. If you see something new, you can actually click report here. Then we do allow you to choose a category. You can upload the name. Perhaps you see a new bird, which is not included in our database. You can name that. You can provide some description. You can also upload a photo about this bird. Then this will be uploaded to our database. But because this is like personal reporting, so for this kind of reporting, we do have one more step for auditing the information to make sure that the information is correct, it's not misleading. And after that, we will release that, and then your reporting will be seen by other people, by the general public. Otherwise, it will only be seen by yourself. So that is about one additional function. And in terms of the exploration of this app, it's basically, it's open to everyone. So you can just, if you're in front of your computer, you can actually type this link, diary.pei climate.ca. You will be able to see all the reporting we have. So with this app, you will be able to put down a panel which will allow you to see all the statistics we have about reporting. So you can choose different categories, and under each category, you can choose specific items. So here you can see I can choose mammals. Then under mammals, I can choose red fox, which is very unique for PEI. Then you can see how many reportings I have for each month, and apparently this screenshot is just for testing purposes. And for the real reporting, you will be able to see which months you have the most reporting. So this is basically indicating this is probably the most common months that you will see red fox. Yeah, and also you can animate that to show the animation from January to December to see, how the reporting is changing over months. Yeah, so overall, I think this function is basically to allow people to kind of explore all the reportings, either by category or by individual item, or you can also look at all the reportings through the app. So for us, what we are going to do is basically we open this to the general public, and this is typically called citizen science. So we do allow people to report what they see. And for us, because our purpose is to basically understand the long-term climate change through this kind of indirect approach based on climate field knowledge. So what we are looking at through the reporting is look at the first time you report this. So for example, for red fox, and every year we do have the first time people report this red fox. Then we look at 10 or 20 or 30 years of data, and we want to check the first time of seeing this is getting early or getting later, so that we can kind of link to the local climate to see what's going on with local climate. So that's basically our research purpose behind that. Another function, I guess, is more about if some people using that, they prefer to change the base map to satellite. We do allow people to do so. You can click on this button to switch to satellite images. Sometimes because you're probably more familiar with satellite image, and especially when you try to remember where you see this, so you can zoom into a specific location to confirm if this is where you see the either animal or plant. I think that's probably all I want to share with you, and I will turn this over to Katie for more details.
Thanks, Xander. I'm just going to share my screen here. Can you see that? Yeah, okay, perfect. So thanks, Xander. My name's Katie Sonier. I work for the Town of Stratford in Prince Edward Island. If you don't know where that is, it's just next to Charlottetown, which is kind of in the center of the island. And we're a bit smaller than Charlottetown, but we do lots of projects together, which I will talk about. So I'm going to talk about Climate Trackers, which is a project that we have ongoing in partnership with the city of Charlottetown and UPEI as well. And the idea came about a staff member at for the city of Charlottetown came to me with an idea called Climate Trackers, which was built off of the project that Xander just talked about, the UPEI Climate Diary project. And so we really wanted to use the app that Xander had already created and kind of make some updates to it. And we did kind of make a few changes for our municipalities, which I'll talk about. So as Xander mentioned, our climate is changing. It has been changing slowly over millions of years, and it is accelerating in recent years. And plants and animals often feel these changes kind of before humans do. So there's lots of different recurring biological events that we can observe to track these changes over time. And I'll just mention too, the Climate Diary app for UPEI, there's actually, like, the earlier part of the project in 2014, UPEI came out with a hard copy of a climate diary. And in that kind of journal that people could take home, it had room for 25 years of data observations in it. And it's organized by by observation. So by, bird species, insect, kind of by observation. So it's quite a large hard copy book, which is great. And we just kind of built off that idea and changed it a bit for the municipalities. A lot of people already noticed a lot of these seasonal changes. So this is really just a chance to get those observations kind of on paper and in the app so that we can actually use them to track changes and trends over time. So the purpose, identify local trends over time. And so for municipalities, we are specifically interested in our local changes and also kind of expanding it to look at, the impacts of flooding, coastal erosion, perhaps storm damage, as storms are kind of becoming more frequent and intense, as we did experience with Hurricane Fiona in September. So as a municipality, there's different projects that we take on each year, and it's great to know like the areas, that might need help the most. So, and this is also a great opportunity to involve the community. So we're always looking for ways that citizens can be involved in projects like this, and also kind of help us to inform decision-making at the municipal level. So that's a really great chance for us to keep them involved. And then, as Xander said, scientists at UPEI can also use the data. So I'll talk a bit more about the project. So as Xander mentioned, these are some examples. This is not a whole list of things that people can look at each year, like the time the leaves change color, the time they see the first birds. As Xander mentioned, spring is a great time to talk about this kind of stuff, because this is when we're seeing a lot of the animals come back, the snow is melting, things like that. And we also wanted to make some updates, like I was talking about, for the municipality to keep track of storm damage and things like that. So we actually did add 2 other categories of options you could pick in the app, which were climate change and your property. So if there's like basement flooding, things like that, damage to your trees from a storm, maybe a power outage. And we also added lawns and gardens. So that's just to keep track of pests. So like if there's a pest infestation in your lawn, the time that you planted your vegetable garden, things like that. So those are kind of things that we added to the app that we wanted to track. So then I'll tell you a bit about our specific project. So we kind of changed, we wanted to have a physical copy of a diary that people could take home, because a lot of times it is nice to kind of be able to write something down on paper and then go back and add it into the app. As Xander said, you can retroactively add your observations back in. So we kind of created a little climate diary. You can see it's on the screen there. It's a little bit shorter than the 25-year one that UPEI has. So this one would really just be for a year. And it's just maybe a little bit, just kind of more like, I guess, a little bit more user-friendly for like a beginner who maybe doesn't know exactly what they're looking for yet. And it also is a really good chance, like if someone's just interested in like certain types of birds, or like, they don't necessarily notice the whole range of options. So it's a little bit more manageable for a community member. And then we also have these nature guides. So luckily, UPEI did allow us to print some more of these. So they created these little nature guides with Mi'kmaq peoples to allow the Mi'kmaq names of plants and animals and other things to be on these cards. So the idea is this is like a pocket guide, so you could take this out with you. And if you saw, the first flower, you might be able to open this up and find out what it is actually outside. So just to help people kind of learn about plant ID or bird ID or lots of other animals and things to look at. So we did print those. So when somebody in the community signs up to be a climate tracker, they receive a diary and a nature guide as part of that. And then when we launched this project last spring, I think we launched it on Earth Day. We did have 3 workshops set up so that beginners could, have an opportunity to learn about some of the observations they could keep an eye out for. So I believe we did an information session first, just for new climate trackers. And then we did a Signs of Spring workshop where we had a local professional from a group called Wild Child. She walked us around a local park and pointed out lots of different signs of spring, and also talked about foraging different plants, which people really enjoyed. We had somebody else do a talk about invasive species and climate change, because that's something else we really want to track. For example, the emerald ash borer, we don't have those in PEI yet, as far as I know, but it's really good to keep an eye out for new invasive species on the island. And then we had another talk about local indicators of climate change. So there's actually someone named Don Jardine who did a master's at UPEI and has been working with them for a while. And he is just really interested in capturing the impacts of storms. So he goes out a lot for years and has taken pictures of storms as they're happening and tracked a lot of different things about the climate. So he was able to talk about different trends that he's noticed, and just kind of help people get in the mindset of what they might be looking for in terms of climate change. So those were the 3 workshops we offered last spring, and that's all we did last year. And then in the climate diary, so with all of this, we also encourage all the participants to then upload their observations to the climate diary app. And I'm just going to show you some examples of the pages in the climate diary. So we did put several pages where we listed, what to look out for in each category. So you can see there like different types of fish, lots of different insects like bumblebees or June bugs. That's like a key one for a key date. Mammals and the different weather events too. Not just an example. There are lots more examples there. And then the next page, we included directions on how to download the Climate Diary app, so people kind of could just follow this step by step to either get it on their computer or on their phone. And there's actually a way, although it's a web app, you can create a little app icon on your phone. That's really easy to open the app. So we included instructions for people to do that. And then also how to use the app, which I think is really helpful, because you don't know what people's skill set is with technology when they're using this. So then the rest of the diary just has, for each season, we just have a little bit of a kind of description that Don Jardine, as I mentioned, helped us write, where he just kind of explained a few of the trends in this particular season that he's seen on PEI. And then we listed some more examples of what to look for in that particular season. And then you'll see on the right, that's what most of the pages look like. So the participant can circle what the weather was that day, write the date, and then they can write their observation. So whatever it was, they can write it down. And we always remind them at the bottom to add the observation to the app online. And okay, so just going to talk about a few lessons learned. So we did. This whole idea came about because the other staff member at Charlottetown saw one of the climate diaries from UPEI, and it kind of sparked her interest in trying to think of how we could adapt it a little bit for a municipality to use. So that was really great. It's just good to be aware of what else is going on in your area already, so that you can build off of it instead of creating something new. So we do design work in-house if possible. So as municipalities, we always work to a budget. And so sometimes it's great to do kind of what you can in-house if possible. Depending on the organization you work for, you're probably restricted by budget in some way. So we actually just made the climate diary using Canva. We have a paid version, but you could do it with a free version too. So that was really great. All we had to pay for was, we did some of Xander's kind of consulting time to update the app, and then we paid for the diaries and the nature guides to be printed. And that's pretty much it. So it's fairly low cost overall for the project. And it's been pretty successful so far. So I would say promotion is key, and ongoing promotion at that. So at the municipality that I work for, everybody, it's always busy and priorities are changing So we didn't always have the time or resources to, hold other workshops or kind of promote it as much as I would have liked to do. But this is a great time to bring it up again, because spring is a time where everybody's getting outside and they're starting to notice all the animals and plants that are coming back and opening up. So that's definitely key. So I think we originally printed 100 booklets, and we got rid of them all pretty quick because we got a news story out on CBC, which was really great, just to kind of promote the project. And we did have to print some more journals. I think we have around more than 30 people signed up officially as a climate tracker, but a lot of the workshops we did, people maybe didn't sign their name, but we still gave them a booklet so they could participate. And something that I've been doing is putting out regular social media posts. So when the season's changing, I try and remind members or participants to kind of summarize what they saw that season and kind of give them some ideas of what to look for in the next season. And then for workshops too, outdoor workshops are better if you can get them outside, especially in the spring. People, we've just found that, community members don't really want to come inside on an evening to do a workshop. So outside, if you can do a workshop outside, you might get more people out that way. So that, and then there also is a lot more room for expansion that we just didn't have time for. But we were talking about trying to get these, out to maybe some school groups or youth groups, maybe even some seniors clubs, just different. There's lots of different groups in the community that I'm sure would be interested. We just need to get the word out still. So that's something that's ongoing and definitely could be revamped at any time. The project is meant to kind of be like, do a big push at the beginning, and then it's meant to be fairly hands-off, aside from maybe planning a few more workshops here and there for people. And I do think the community here is interested in these things. It's just a matter of kind of getting it down on paper and in the app. So I think that is it for me. And I think we're good to take questions now.
Great. Thank you so much for your presentation, Xander and Katie. That was awesome. Just before we jump into the Q&A here, if you do think of any questions, feel free to type them in the chat. I just wanted to take a quick moment to let everyone know about our survey. So we would love to hear if you enjoyed the presentation today and what kind of topics you're interested in hearing about in the future. And Monica is going to drop the link to the survey in the chat. So if you wouldn't mind taking a quick moment to fill that out, it will take less than 5 minutes. And now I'll read out some of the questions that we have here. So here's the first one. It says, have you had groups reach out to run a similar program and use your program templates?
We have not. So as far as I know. So definitely I would be happy to share like our templates for the journal.
Yeah,
it looks like a really cool journal. And
maybe I also want to add actually, for our app, it's actually can also be used for anywhere, not only about PEI. We do see some people reporting something from Nova Scotia, I think from app. They can basically move the app around to report anywhere. But it's more about the database. So far we only include the typical user biological activities for PEI. So that's probably the only issue.
Yeah, that's a really good point to know. Thanks. And then also I have a question. It says, how did the original project come about and how did you approach UPEI to collaborate?
Right, good question. So I think I mentioned this. So one of my colleagues, she saw the UPEI Climate Diary, the hard copy. That came about in 2014. Maybe Xander can speak to the background a bit more than I can. But they kind of did a lot of background research too in the study of phenology, created this climate diary, and then kind of distributed it like in 2014. So she just basically found this diary, thought it was great, wanted to make maybe a bit shorter of a version for a municipality. And I actually worked with Xander a couple of years ago. So we already did have a connection. But I think my colleague just sent an email kind of explaining, what our idea was, what we would like to do with it. And luckily they said, that's great. And they helped us out. So it was definitely pretty smooth for us. So if you do have a connection or something, that definitely makes it easier. But even just sending an email, usually universities are really great to collaborate on projects. So yeah.
Very nice. And we're hoping that maybe both of you could expand on, can you go into a bit more information about how you got the general public on board with signing up and then continuously participating in these programs?
Yep, I can start with that one. So as a municipality, we have social media channels that we post a lot of our programs on. So we did a lot of promotion about the workshops on that. I think we put out a media release as well when we first launched the project. And then we had, we kept promoting the workshops. I mentioned this, we did have CDC do a story, which I find is actually one of the best ways to get the word out. If you can get it on the radio or something like that. I find a lot of people in PEI at least listen to the radio a lot, so that helps. And definitely, like, one of the workshops that was the most well attended was the one we did with this group called Wild Child, where they actually it's kind of like a day camp for kids, but they spend the whole day outside. They learn all kinds of things about plants and animals, and they kind of just let the kids, they really like immerse the kids in like the outdoors. And so they also are already well-established group. So partnering with a group that already has like a solid, foundation, and getting them to share it as well was helpful for us. Yeah.
Awesome. Xander, did you have anything to add about that one?
Not too much. I think Katie mentioned a lot, but I think at the initial stage of this, we also the first time we launched this app, it's not a lot of stuff within the app back to then, but we did went to several local communities to show them. I think for us, a key step is to give them a demo. I think especially we do have the reason we add this function to allow people to report new. It's actually because it's like more open, because sometimes they do see we only have a limited items in the database. Sometimes they do want to report something new. So later on we kind of open this. We have this function so that people actually are not only limited to those biological events or animals or plants. They can also report anything actually. So I think essentially, I think it's more becomes people sometimes sharing what they see. But essentially, for us, I think it's great. But what we still want to kind of put a little bit limitation on that. So that's why we don't allow people to, when they report something new, we will not actually publish this directly to the app, to the public. So they do see this immediately. If for a reporter, it's him or herself. We need to go through a little bit verification process before we share this with the public. Just make sure there's no misunderstanding or misinformation from those images or description languages or something like that. Yeah, but overall, I think it's great. It's great to show, especially I think kids, when you show them, in some schools, we can do this immediately. They can see on the app. I think that makes them feel excited, and it's very, very great. Yeah.
And do either of your organizations have any other citizen science programs that people can get involved with that you know of?
Yeah, for UPEI, I think yeah, I believe in our there are a lot of departments. I believe there are a lot of people, maybe island studies or some other departments. They do have a lot of similar ideas. But for us, I guess climate diary is probably one of the best one for kind of get people get involved, because they can they can put something into the app. For others, like we do have climate weather climate app for PEI, but this is mostly for like users. They cannot put something in, so they only use the information. So I guess for us in our Canadian Center for Climate Change and Adaptation, PEI Climate Diary is probably the most interactive one. People can interact with that. Others is more about information, so they get information, they use that for other purposes. Maybe Katie, you want to add something or?
Yeah, I don't think we have any other programs in particular like this. But we do work really closely with the Stratford Area Watershed Improvement Group here, and they do put on like different kind of walks and workshops and different things throughout the year. So I think that's also an opportunity. These projects are somewhat related to their work. So I think partnering with them and like in the future, getting them promoting their workshops maybe to help with this would be an option. But this is, as far as I know, the only kind of citizen science project that we have.
Awesome. And a question for Xander. Is the collected data connected to any other open source databases like iNaturalist or DataStream?
Well, that's a really good question. I think certainly the person asking this question is certainly familiar with that app. So unfortunately, at this moment, we are not connected to that. We have our separate database to store all reporting. It's mostly for our research purpose at this moment. But certainly, I hope in the future, probably that's certainly a direction we want to, look at, because I think, a lot of, people actually are using that app sometimes, and kind of we can complement with each other. I believe our app is also very user friendly. Yeah, I think that's really direction we want to look at moving forward to kind of further promote this app.
Yeah, I know people can use iNaturalist to help them identify what they're seeing too, which could be helpful, and then add it into your app. So that's good. And now another question. It says, what are the goals with these projects? Will there be evaluations or check-ins after a certain number of years?
Right. So for ours, I think that is the idea. So once we get some data from our municipalities, specifically in the app, we could look at them to, like I said, identify maybe areas where we should do certain projects in the town if people are having recurring issues like flooding or something like that. I definitely think it will take a couple of years for a lot of that information to come in so that it is useful. But I definitely think it's something that we will, keep promoting, and we do check like how many people are involved and try and spread the word, especially at this time of year. So it's just, this is like coming up on the 1 year mark for it. So I think it'll take a couple of years to fully establish and figure out how we can evaluate it to make sure that it's, and maybe identify some changes we can make.
Yeah, I totally agree with Katie. I think for us, it's certainly targeting for many years. We need like long-term data, because like 1 or 2 years data, it's certainly it's not sufficient for us to make any conclusion. But I think encouraging people, encouraging public to kind of enter data, report data every year is actually not a easy task. The first year probably okay, but next year they will probably either forget or maybe they switch to other interests. So I think long term is really a challenging issue for us. How do we kind of keep track of this? For us, the system is designed to kind of store the data so that we can look at the long term trend. But it's more about the data itself. So we really need to encourage people to report every year so that we can have enough records to look at this long-term pattern.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that's all the questions we have here. So we'll conclude our question and answer. So I would just like to thank everyone for coming out today. If you do think of any questions later on, you can always send us an email at info@watersheds.ca, and we'd be happy to pass those on. And don't forget to register for our upcoming webinar for the last community science of the month. And I would like to wish you all a great rest of your day.
Thank you very much.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.